Hello, welcome back to Vets Talk Pets. We usually say we're going to have an interesting podcast. Stay tuned and listen, and pet discoveries and cool cases of the week. Today's, I don't want to call it a different podcast. I think I would call it a timely podcast because of what Dr. Chip and I are seeing right now, today, and for the last couple weeks. I anticipate for the next couple weeks an upswing of new puppy visits. Mm-hmm. Now, why do you think that is, Dr. Chip?
Well, to date the current podcast, we are in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, and I think everybody's experiencing that in their own ways right now, but most people are forced to stay home, which is really good. But when you're home, you need some sanity and some things to do, and most people always say they want to have a dog or a pet, but they're too busy for training and that kind of thing. So what I believe it is because people are home, they're with their families, and they have the time to put in the training.
I absolutely think that's it. And we have one of those people in the studio with us today.
Yes, we do.
It happens to be your sister, my daughter, Nicole Beal.
Hello.
Who has actually been on the podcast before as an interviewer on another topic. I forget what it was. But you did so good on that one. And you happen to have a new puppy. Like coincidentally, like Dr. Chip said, you're working from home now. Thank God you're working still, but you're raising a new puppy. So I think you're here not only just to ask questions, but I think questions that you really have about what's going on in your own household.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a Corona pup. She's a Brittany Pooh. I'm looking right at her right now.
She's in the studio.
She's on my mom's lap, and I think my mom's loving it. It was a breeder in Kentucky, and someone had purchased her, put the money down, and they were from New Orleans. The coronavirus hit, and they didn't feel comfortable traveling up here, so they forfeited Penny. Penny's her name. And so we got Penny because of coronavirus. So yeah, it's a very interesting situation.
You mentioned the podcast she was on before. It was actually a really good podcast for pet parents to go listen to right now because it was during Christmas, and we're talking about good Christmas gifts to get your pet. So it applies right now because what are some good gifts to use with puppies? So go back and listen to that one.
Oh my gosh. We've been to the store probably 100 times getting puppy toys for Penny. She loves that Kong toy. Yeah. She loves that Kong.
Do you do anything special with that Kong?
I do. Actually, there's a new thing. My legendary trick is that you fill one end up with peanut butter, and then you pack a bunch of treats in there, put a little bit of orange juice in there, fill the other side with peanut butter, you put it in the freezer, and make a Kong popsicle. Yeah. Filled with treats and peanut butters, and they go for hours.
It lasts a while that way,
doesn't
it?
Stimulating, and it's great.
I think that coldness also is good for their teeth when they're teething.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What other kind of toys do you have?
When we first brought her home, I went and bought one of every kind. So a rope toy, a Kong toy, a bouncy toy, a ball, and just to see what she fancied. The verdict is she likes rope toys. She really likes ropes. She likes rope rugs, so she really likes to chew on my rug. So I have questions about that.
Please tell me that you don't have rawhide.
I do not have rawhide.
You have listened to us.
No rawhide. No rawhide. I'll tell you what, though. I say it's interesting because at the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned working from home. So ironically, when this whole Corona thing hit, I thought, oh, this is going to be a perfect time. I'll be at home, working from home, training a puppy, and what could be better? So that actually did not turn out to be true. I work for a company that was deemed an essential business. So I am actually in the office. I used to travel, every week. I am actually in the corporate office more than I ever have been in my entire life. So here I am. The importance of good training now. I don't have all day to do it. And I'm finding myself, even having been raised by a veterinarian and being able to call my brother, I find myself getting a little frustrated because you start YouTubing, you start reading, and everybody has a different method. And so if I watch one YouTube video that teaches me to tell her how to sit, and then the next one uses a different hand command and tells them how to lay down. Now I've confused her and confused myself. And these should be simple things, but I just kind of want to get back to the basics. And I think this podcast was born because last week I called Mom. I said, hey, I can't get a hold of Chip, but do you remember him talking about clicker training? I can't remember what he said. Was he for it or against it? And there's a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos that are using the clicker. And so how about we start there? I'd like to hear what your thoughts on the clicker.
Dr. Chip is not a board certified behaviorist. That's a whole different specialty in veterinary medicine, but he has an intense interest and emphasis at Springboro Veterinary Hospital in behavior training, those kind of issues. So Dr. Dr. Chip. Can you address that?
I'll definitely address clicker training, but you mentioned something that's important, that it is overwhelming when you go online and try to decide which way to go. And there's a lot of good stuff and a lot of not so good stuff. But I think what's important is you don't get caught up in that too much. And if you do, pick one thing.
Yeah.
Because, and I always tell pet parents, when you are training a new puppy, it's important that the whole family is on the same page. Like if you use the word stay and dad uses the word place, the puppy gets confused. And as far as what's good and what's bad, anything that has positive reinforcement, I'm for, and the negative reinforcement isn't. And positive reinforcement's all around praise and not scaring them. Not, some people like to yell at their dogs or,
right.
Hold their mouth shut. I'm not for that. But clicker training, I would say, done the right way, it falls under positive reinforcement, and it's really good. It's just, it takes a lot of time and a lot of consistency, which would be hard for somebody that's gone all day. When you get home and then you have to start training, it can be tough.
And how do you wean them off, like the clicker training? Because at some point, I'm not going to have
You don't, no, it's
forever?
Forever.
Oh.
Yeah, because what they do is they hear the click and they respond to the click.
So that would be tough, though. Flash forward 2-3 years doing my life, I'm not always going to have the clicker, right? Or I just have to remember to bring it. Yep.
But what it does, you don't have to wean them off, but right now it's all about establishing that bond.
Yeah.
And the clicker, getting into that routine's good.
Yeah.
But the first thing to do, and I already saw you do it today, is teach her how to sit.
Yeah.
And then once she learns how to sit, you make her sit for everything. Sit before you pet her, sit before you feed her. So you're writing notes.
I feel like you should take notes right now. That's actually really good. And that's a good point.
Sit before she goes outside, sit before she goes inside. It just helps with obedience and just building that bond, because what she's attracted to is that connection when you give her a treat. It doesn't matter what the treat is. It's just that relationship that you have giving her something.
Yeah. Sit for everything. That's a really good point. Like
an 8-week-old puppy can learn how to sit.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so I have 2 more questions just based off of that right there. So she's 15 weeks. She was at the breeder without her litter mates for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think she had a whole lot of contact with her mom on the last few weeks, right? She was weaned off. I guess that's the thing. I'm not sure how that works. So at 15 weeks, am I behind the 8 ball? Has she developed some behavioral things that I have to worry about? Or
she might just require a little more training. Makes a good point for people that are getting dogs. Really good place is the shelters, and you kind of don't have the luxury of getting them to stay with their mom when they're from the shelter. But if you are somebody out there that's getting one from a breeder, it's important that you do not get it before it's 8 weeks. Ideally, get them when they're 10 weeks with mom, because mom teaches them a lot of behaviors and those type of things, and just for socialization. But yeah, that'd be one of my stipulations. If you're looking for a puppy and the breeder wants to give it to you at 6 weeks or 7 weeks, that might be a red flag. So I don't think I answered your question, because your situation was different, because it was a little bit of a rescue type situation.
kind of.
Well, Penny's 15 weeks now, but how old was she when you got her?
She
I
was
got her at 12 weeks.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
still,
that's-
but she wasn't with mom. She was kind of left outside, right?
She was left outside in the winter cold.
Oh.
So your potty training behaviors were a little bit of a challenge,
Yes.
because some dogs will only want to be outside. Taking them inside the house is an issue.
She was the opposite. She only wanted to pee and poop in the house. She did not want to pee and poop outside the house. So it was because she lived outside. So she doesn't know.
So at 15 weeks now, where are you with that?
She's good. So
You turn that around?
I
a
have
little bit?
turned that around.
Okay.
And you're probably asking that because we're at your house right now.
Penny?
No, but we have turned that around. Back to the bonding thing, because I've been reading about that. And as you're saying some of this stuff, I had a dog for 15 years. And 15 years ago, I read a book called Mother Knows Best. I'm rereading it now, and it's really good. It's more about how a mother dog teaches their pup, So, and they talk a lot about bonding. I think the most important call is come. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, it's a life-saving command. Yeah.
I know you're not like a dog trainer, but any tips on how you get them to come when called?
Yeah, that's outside of sit, stay, lay. That's probably the most important command you could teach her, because it could save her life.
Yep.
If you're in the front yard and not in a fenced area and she takes off and doesn't respond, she can get hit by a car.
Yeah.
She'd be like my dog, who has what I call the call of the wild, where if she gets loose, she's across town on a trail like no other. So teaching him that can really save them. But how to do that, that's one of the tougher ones to teach. And to be honest, it takes a group effort. So one thing you could do is you and somebody else sit in your backyard on opposite sides of the yard from each other, and each person has a treat in a ball. or just a treat, and one person start yelling the command come, and as soon as she gets to you, you give her a treat. And then the other person starts yelling the command come, and then that person gives her a treat right away. Over and over and over. And it doesn't have to be the word come. It could be here, whatever you want it to be.
Yep. That's a good point.
And just takes practice and repetition. But the common theme with everything I'm going to be saying is a treat and this positive reinforcement. And it has to be given immediately when she does what you want her to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you're taking her outside to go potty and she goes potty outside, you have to give her a treat right when she's done.
Yeah.
Not when she comes back inside.
They forget.
Yeah, they forget.
It's funny. We are doing that with the potty training, and I think she's figured out she gets a treat and she's faking it. Right?
Yeah.
So she goes like,
it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. So does that answer your question about the hear or come command? Mm-hmm. It's something to really work on.
I agree. And that's one that I had a dog that it saved her life for sure. I mean, she set her little hiney right down when I told her to wait, stay, and then she came on recall quickly, and that was huge, especially on a property or a farm when she would kind of wander off. That was big. So I have a wide group of girlfriends, friends, coworkers. They're always asking me to ask my brother or ask my dad a question, and I keep wanting to direct them to a podcast, but you guys talk about so many different topics. I think this is the one I'll probably direct them to for puppies. Some of the questions they always ask me is the chewing, right? Teething, like biting the hands, right? Or biting the kids' ankles, biting, chewing. That one comes up a lot. So I've heard bitter apple stuff before, but I don't know if that works. What are your thoughts?
When my son was a baby, our pediatrician told us, because he was in a lot of pain from teething and their nose run and their ears and they cough, she told us that if we were as human adults to go through the teething process, we wouldn't be able to comprehend how painful that is. And that kind of stuck with me a little bit because that's how bad it is. I felt bad for him, but it gave me able to empathize with them and figure out what's going on. So with animals, I kind of take that same approach, although they don't really, sometimes they'll get diarrhea and things like that from the pain.
Wow.
But that process, usually the teeth start falling out between 3 and 6 months, give or take. You know, bigger dogs, sometimes that's earlier. Smaller dogs, you can go even longer. But the most important thing you can do to try first, and is easier said than done, is when they start biting you, is redirect it. And what I mean by that is keep a little nylabone or a Kong in your pocket, and as soon as she starts to do it, you give it to her, and instead of biting you, and it redirects the behavior. And it's way easier said than done because especially people that have kids, like the parents get it, but when they do it to the kid reacts and they run away, and it just escalates and it turns into this big play session, and it actually encourages the biting behavior. But if you can redirect the attention, that's the best thing you can do.
Yep.
Now, I will say, you know, some people take different steps about holding the mouth shut, and I don't recommend that, but, you know, some people, I don't fault the people that do it. You know, I have some pet parents that are older that are on blood thinners and that type of thing, and it's really important that they don't get cut.
Yeah.
And those little teeth are like razor blades.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So if you could redirect it, that'd be good. And if I say Kong and nylabone because they're hard and they're a little therapeutic when you chew them, but if there's something high value that distracts her, then use that.
It's awesome. Okay, so first off, I just found out that my puppy's teeth are going to fall out.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
You didn't know that.
I did not know that. So I have another question.
And it's going to be painful.
Yeah. Is she going to swallow her teeth, or what's going to happen?
Potentially, yeah. You might find them, you might never see them.
Huh. I don't need to be worried about that, her choking on them or something?
No, that's a good question, though. People do ask that. They're really small.
Yeah.
If you go out in your backyard and sift through the feces, you can find them and put them underneath your pillow.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's funny. We're sitting here, and I got a text message from a friend who just got a dog on Facebook about a puppy. But we could talk all day about behavior stuff.
Oh, I know. Okay, here's another behavior one. So when I put Penny in the crate and I leave the room, it is mayhem. I mean, whining. I think my neighbors think I'm abusing her. It's like horrible. I can hear her from
Crate
down the
training,
road.
huh? Yeah, crate training is an important thing.
Yeah.
It can be life-saving for them because when you leave the house, you don't want your puppy to be free rein because they'll get into something that they're not supposed to that's toxic, or they'll swallow something that could cause them to be obstructed. And what I say to pet parents with crate training is try to make the crate something that's not just this place that she goes when it's bedtime or when you leave.
Right.
Try to create some positive experiences with it to make her like it. Like feed her meals in the crate with the door open so she can walk in, eat her food, and then walk out and the door never shut behind her. And she had a good experience. Because right now, all she knows is this place that she doesn't like because she's away from you.
Yep, good idea.
You can teach her the word crate can be a command. And you could say, Penny, crate. And then every time she walks in, you give her a treat. And then you give her a treat when she walks out, in and out, over and over. And then another thing, we talked about the Kongs and peanut butter. You could put that in the freezer and give it to her when you leave. She'll be stimulated and not quite focused on what she thinks is a life-ending situation that she's locked in there.
She acts like it's a life ending.
Yeah.
Nicole, it does get better.
Yeah.
Everybody has heard us talk about our puppy, Rosie. And Rosie is just about to leave puppyhood. She's about 1.5 years old. She's been sleeping in our bed with us for a year now.
No, you didn't tell me that.
Oh, yeah. I know how you feel about that. And we've had debates about that. And I choose to let my dog do that. But last night we went to bed. Where's Rosie? And we have her crate still in our bedroom next to the bed where it always was. There she was in the crate with the door open, stretched out, sleeping. That she's comfortable in there.
Yeah, that's her little home.
So if you do it right, like Dr. Chip's talking about, it's not a negative thing.
It's not. It's funny. I'm laughing to myself because I gave Dad this advice early, and with the most literal person I know, I walk back to his bedroom, and of course the crate's right next to his bed, and there's a jar of peanut butter right next to his bed, and you look at the cage, and it's all the wires are caked in peanut butter residue, and just like I just picture him at nighttime just sitting there, peanut butter.
We slather with peanut butter.
Of course, you like the crate if that's where she's going to get her peanut butter.
Yeah, amen.
And it's a good example. I mean, try to create some positive experiences with it.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And so, on that point, tell us? I'd like to hear the dog sleeping in the bed. What thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a believer of they're pets. They benefit us. They make our lives happier. They're enrichment, and they're benefited by us because we love them. It's just a mutually exclusive relationship. So I'm a fan of sleeping in the bed. I was just giving them a hard time. It'd be easy for me to say no bed, but I mean, that's what you get pets for.
Yeah, totally.
Now, but I think when they're a reasonable age, when you know that they're potty trained, they're not going to get up and choose something in the middle of the night when you're not looking.
Rosie did start that until she was 6 months old because she had to be in the crate because we didn't trust her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I heard something, though. I think we've all talked about Chip's dog's name's Dusty. Sleeping at the corner of the bed and you don't know she's there or something?
We were just talking about that.
You're giving me grief.
I know. Yeah.
As you can tell, the Beal family, we love our pets.
Yeah.
So, just to reiterate, make it a positive thing. That really goes with anything. It's going to be a common theme for us.
Yeah.
Positive experiences.
On that note, positive experiences. So I keep hearing about puppies having a fear period. Mm-hmm. My dad thinks his dog is constantly in the fear period.
I just always try to protect her.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
and she's turned out to be a great dog.
An amazing dog.
Yeah.
So what is the fear period? When is it? And as a pet parent, what do I need to be doing in that time?
They are specific periods, and Dr. Chip knows them.
It lasts about a week, and the first one happens between 8 and 10 weeks, and we don't know when that is, and there's no signs that show it or anything. So you missed that one.
Yep.
And then the second one, and it's been a while since I talked about this, I think it's between 8 and 11 months, and it's just a 1 to 2 week period, and that's a big.
Yeah, how do you find that?
Yeah, you don't know. So what that means, a fear period is they're hypersensitive to anything bad that might happen to them, like a dog fight, boarding. For some dogs, boarding at that age can be traumatic. Yelling at them, hitting them with a newspaper. People that do it that way. And what happens is if something like that does happen during their fear period, it manifests itself in adulthood and maybe a dog that is aggressive or hypersensitive to noises, that type of thing. And it's permanent behavior damage for long term.
Wow.
And you don't know what happened and you don't know anything. And so what you can do during those times is just try to avoid, for the 8 to 10-week-old puppies, not a good idea to have around a dog that might be aggressive.
Yeah.
It could be attacked or bit or boarded. Would not be a good idea at that age. For multiple reasons, but for that reason, just trying to provide a safe environment.
Protect them from noises, like loud things, as much as you can.
With my dog, she's terrified of thunderstorms. I have to turn the fan on for her so she can't hear the thunderstorm.
Yeah, and we're about to enter thunderstorm season.
So I just said that my dog Rosie's 1.5 years old. Isn't there a fear period during 1.5 years old?
No. What do you mean?
I need a reason to protect her some more.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Tell me there is.
No, she's good. She survived.
She survived.
I can still love on her.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a big one too. You brought up thunderstorms, and man, you did a podcast on fireworks, which I thought gunshots, all those things are really good. Is there anything I can do at a young age with a puppy so that she's not scared of that in the future?
Yeah, I'll kind of lump this topic into a couple different things under counter conditioning, and you can do with toenail trimming too. You can counter condition them to actually like a thunderstorm, or you can counter condition them to actually like a toenail trim with plain thunderstorm on your phone, really, really low level, like she can't even hear it, and then give her some treats and kind of hang out and have a peaceful time. And then over the course of months, and take it slowly increase that sound, but also pair it with a treat and praise. And eventually, she'll...
Great idea.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah, and sometimes it's unavoidable because the way the dog might have been born to a mom that was stressed out in the shelter, and so therefore they're hypersensitive to their hormones that make them stressed and that kind of stuff. But
yep, that's a good idea, Chip.
Same with the toenail trim. You can bring out the toenail trimmer, show it to them, and give them a treat, and do that every day for a week. And then the next week, you just touch their toes with the toenail trimmer and give them a treat. And then the next week, you just clip one toenail and give them a treat. And then eventually, they'll really like their toenails trimmed.
I am so not trimming her toenails.
I would love it if everybody did that, because it gets pretty rough when the dog doesn't like a toenail trim in the clinic.
I bet. It's like terrible for them.
Yeah.
All right. And then we talked about whining. We talked about click training. We talked about bonding. What about barking? Barking, we have all these people working from home right now. They're still on their Zoom calls, they're on their conference calls, and they've got a dog that sees a squirrel or sees something walking by and they're barking in the background. How do we stop that?
That's tough. Man, that's really tough. I use to refocus them.
Yep.
I mean, I'll tell some people if it's bad enough, put cardboard up on the bottom half of your window if you have to, just to refocus them, kind of like with their biting, give them a food puzzle to keep them stimulated. And
have you seen or heard of those bark collars? Not the zappers, but I guess when it has a little box on it, it's not electrical or anything like that. But when it barks, it like vibrates metal, like from their vocal.
I wouldn't recommend that. I'm not saying it's wrong that people that do it, but I don't think I'd recommend that. I think there's other things you could do.
Yeah.
And it's all based around having a dog that's trained.
Right.
Again,
a lot
easier
of that
said than
has
done.
to do with patience on your part, because the things that Dr. Chip is recommending are really the gold standard. They work really well, but they take time.
And
A lot of patience, a lot of time. Where people go to these devices, they can be quicker and easier for the owner, but a little tougher on the dog, and just not really, like you say, not necessarily recommended.
Yeah, and then people that do it, I don't think anything. I mean, there's some
no
cases where
judgment
it works great and the dog is not affected by it. But if you give like a shock collar, for example, during a fear period, that could be something that
for sure. I see everybody at the park I go to. All these dog owners are carrying the thing around their neck, right, and they're zapping their dog. I guess.
No,
I don't know.
mean, there's different ones. Some of them, like you said, vibrate. Some of them actually release a pheromone, and that's it, which makes the dog feel calm and kind. So
yeah.
All those things are great, and I kind of leave it up to the pet parent. Like I said, what I'm recommending is gold standard, but it also takes a lot of time and a lot of work and patience, like you said.
Yeah, and that's always rewarded.
Yeah, for sure. I think back
long term,
Yeah.
Going through all this has triggered, like I did this once before with Gracie 15 years ago, and I keep telling myself she was a wonderful dog. She was a lifelong dog, and so it's worth it because it really
is. It pays down the road. You're just speaking of down the road, and my last dog before the podcast, her name was Carly. She was the best dog ever.
No, Gracie was the best dog
You
ever.
want to debate that? Everybody has the best dog ever.
Yeah.
I now have the newest best dog ever.
No, I have the newest best dog ever.
Never heard me say that. I'm just kidding. I do have the best dog ever.
Dusty is her best dog.
My son thinks she's the best dog ever.
That makes Dusty the best dog ever because Gage rules everything.
Yes.
My last dog was a complete beggar from the table, obnoxious beggar. She'd tilt your arm up and you couldn't hardly eat.
You couldn't eat your food. She'd throw you off the fork.
She'd knock you off the chair to get food off your plate.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, I created that, and I quite honestly,
and Steve Goebel,
I enjoyed it. Yeah, Steve Goebel, if you're listening, you caused it. But it just didn't bother me. I was just part of loving my dog by giving her treats all the time off table scraps and things. Now, my new dog, Rosie, none. And I got to tell you, it's really nice not to have a begging dog when people come over and stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that, Dr. Chip?
Yeah, I mean, and if I remember correct, your dog had
She did.
pancreatitis.
Chronic pancreatitis. The vet's dog.
And that's from human food.
She did.
But she would also get into the trash. But
She was a trash dog.
So what that does, though, it does stimulate that trash behavior,
Yep.
getting in
She's
the
looking for it.
trash
Yep.
and looking for it. And if you could just give them a treat, yeah, they like the food, it tastes good, but what they're more connected to is that motion of you giving them something. That's what they want. And I always recommend when training to use their own kibble as their treat, just to, so they just like it and don't get picky, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's a good size for training. But yeah, begging is just, I feel like that can diminish the human-animal bond a little bit because you get frustrated and you want to put her outside or put her away, that type of thing.
I know we're probably getting up on time here. I just have a couple quick closing questions. As far as grooming goes, so I want to ask two things. Let's talk about grooming for puppies pre-COVID. When's the right time to take your pet to the groomer? And then grooming during COVID. So I have a new puppy that needs
There is
groomed,
none.
and everybody's closed. And so knowing she's in a fear period and knowing I have no idea what I'm doing with dog shears, when is it a good time to take your dog for their first grooming appointment, like age-wise? And then what should we do during COVID?
Yeah, I'll answer the pre-COVID, and I'll let Dr. Chip answer the COVID.
Because I don't know.
It's a fearful time, and owners are gonna have to do it themselves. So it's an issue. But in normal conditions, I always tell my clients that come in with a 10-week-old puppy, whether they need it or not, get that first grooming appointment with a professional groomer ASAP. And that should be a very light grooming. Oftentimes, maybe not even any cutting, maybe just a bath and a little bit of a blow dry, just to get used to the smells in the grooming parlor, get used to a human groomer, other dogs in the grooming. There's just the noises in the grooming parlor can be scary. But I like to get them out of that 8 to 10 week period because of the fear period that Dr. Schiff was talking about. So 10, 11, 12 weeks, and that should be very, very introductory grooming at that point. But I don't know what to tell you during the COVID crisis because all the groomers are closed.
I know, and it's only been a couple weeks, but we're going to be pretty soon getting to some of the dogs that do need groomed. Doing it on yourself is not easy. I don't even know if I recommend it. I would say at this point, I mean, let's just hang in there and see if we can get through this, and hopefully soon they'll open back up. I feel like they're going to.
Yeah.
What about just a lot of brushing so they don't get mad?
Keep them brushed out's good. And then I always tell pet parents, I never recommend bathing your dog more than once a month, as it is just for the health of their skin, and because they have a skin barrier that you can compromise if you wash them too much. So yeah, that's just good general advice. Don't bathe your dog more than once a month or at all unless it needs it. But yeah, the COVID thing, there's all kinds of stuff that we're just really hoping that we get through this in time.
Well, the groomers are going to be inundated.
Yeah, same with the humans too, like the haircuts.
I need a haircut.
I know, same.
I don't want to not talk about potty training.
Yes. Oh, wow.
We talked about it just a little bit. So it's a really important thing. So the 3 most common times that your dog is going to have an accident in the house is, the obvious one is right when they wake up, whether it's the morning or from a nap.
Yep.
They need to go outside. And again, you give them a treat when they go, not when they come back in. The second most common time is after they eat. They're almost immediately stimulated to go to the bathroom. So that always kind of brings up another question, is how many times a day do I feed my dog?
Right.
And I'm a fan of twice a day feedings for a couple reasons, because it just develops that routine and that bond. But if you feed them breakfast and they don't finish their food, you take it away. You give them enough time. And then at dinner time, you feed them again. And you don't make up for what they missed in the morning. You feed them dinner. If they don't finish it, you take it away. And what that will do is they'll start to know, like, if I don't finish this right now, it's not going to be here.
Yeah.
So I better finish it. If you don't do that, they'll become a grazer, and they'll go and eat when you're not looking. And then they'll go have an accident when you're not looking. So I'm a big fan of twice a day feed. I know breeders and online and things say a lot of different things, but you're going to be giving it treats anyways throughout the day. You can use their own kibble. So that's the second most common time, is after they eat. And the third most common time that they're going to have an accident, and people don't always realize, if there's a big play session. So if they're having rompous time with the kids or with another dog or even you, they'll be pretty stimulated to go to the bathroom. So it's a good time to take them out. So those are the 3 most common times. And then there's a little formula you can use on how long they should be able to hold their bladder. and it's the N+1 rule. So it's the number of months they are plus 1 is how many hours they should be able to hold their bladder.
Wow.
So let's say you have an 8-week-old puppy you just got, so it's 2 months. So it should be able to hold his bladder for 3 hours. I will say during the daytime, you can't take him out enough, but like at nighttime and stuff, if you could do at least every 3 hours, that usually holds true till they're about 6 months. So they should be able to hold it for 7 hours, and then they should be able to hold it through the night.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
As we get ready to wrap up this puppy podcast, I mean, we've talked, and we should. That's actually, these are the kind of questions that we get from clients, and we've talked all about behavior. But let's not forget to make sure you get your puppies vaccinated, dewormed, on flea and tick preventative, on heartworm preventative, and a really good diet. We had a pet nutritionist on a podcast last month. Listen to that podcast, and it's an amazing podcast. So a good diet too. So don't forget that.
Yep.
Anything you want to say?
Yeah,
wrapping it up.
Yeah, because coming to the vet hospital right now during COVID is a little more complicated, but puppies need vaccinated to be protected from things in the environment that they can get that are.
It's essential.
It's essential. The reason why that is the puppy's covered and protected by mom's milk. They get antibodies from that, but those antibodies start to fall off. They start falling off at 8 weeks, and they're completely gone about 16 or 17 weeks. So there needs to be vaccinations between that every so often to protect them.
Yep.
So it's a good point. That's
another thing to consider, and we're not doing this during COVID. We're not doing routine surgeries. We're doing surgery every day that's essential, sicknesses and things like that. But routine surgeries like spays and neuters we're putting off on this COVID. But get them spayed and neutered too when we can.
Yeah.
That's really important too. Yeah. Okay, I would like to just make one last statement that when you adopt a dog from a shelter, the shelters are pretty much emptying out right now because people are adopting dogs. You're not just getting that dog to get you through COVID. It's a lifelong commitment. We don't want to fill these shelters back up again when we all go back to work. Let's make arrangements, get crates, get advice from people like Dr. Chip to keep this dog in your house for the rest of its life. It's
Absolutely.
It's just really, really sad if you don't.
Yeah, I can sit here and talk all day about puppy stuff, but I do feel like this is an important thing off of what you just said. Ohio State did a study on why dogs are released to the animal shelter, and it is way more due to behavior issues
That's a fact.
instead of illnesses.
Yep.
So the old school way was to say isolate your dog until it's fully vaccinated. Well, dogs need to be socialized for behavior reasons. So if you can socialize your dog when they're puppies, even before they're fully vaccinated, it's really important, but do it in a responsible way, like with dogs that you know are up to date on vaccines, dogs that are socially acceptable, that are not going to hurt or scare your dog and aren't currently sick.
Yeah.
But things like pet stores and dog parks I would avoid. But that's a good point because socialization and behavior is important, or they end up back in the shelter because people can't handle them.
Let's end it by thanking our beautiful co-host, Nicole. Thanks so much, and I really wish you good luck with penning. I think we're going to have a lot of off-air questions too, right?
Yeah.
For years to come.
On speed dial.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.